Hi, welcome to the Israel First television program with myself, Martin Blackham. Great to have you with us in our studio in Jerusalem. We almost didn't think we were going to make it today because of the snow we've had. Absolutely amazing. We're going to talk about that in 1 minute. So great to have you with us. My name is Martin Blackham. I'm with my wife, Nathalie Blackham, and we're the program. We look at the news from Israel. We have features from Israel. And if you're joining us live on YouTube, then please do send us your comments. Natalie's going to have a look at those as they come in. And the first thing, as I said, is the snow. We did wonder if we'd be able to even go live today, Natalie, isn't it? We thought that it might not be possible. It says Jerusalem is hit by the first snow in years. Some of the capital sees 6 inches of snow as education and transport faces disruption in the city. Israeli police warned of possible road closures. The city deployed 250 snow ploughs and bulldozers to clear roads, with priority given to routes to hospitals and higher neighborhoods. Road 1, which is the main...
Now, this is interesting what you say, because I was thinking yesterday, we were cozy in our bed, it started snowing, and suddenly I was saying, oh my gosh, there is all these pregnant ladies, and they have to go to the hospital one way or another. And you know, I'm sure a lot of you know that Jerusalem is surrounded with mountain, so the roads are not straight. Now they've done the road 1, they've done a lot of work on that, but when you go to Hadassah, one of the main hospitals, is like the road is very steep, and so it's tricky. And I was thinking about that yesterday.
Yeah, so it's been something that Israel has to deal with, because you have to remember it's a country which doesn't have snow normally, and it's not used to it. So in a lot of countries you'll have grit, you'll have snow plows, you'll have everything apparatus all set up to deal with the snowstorm, but Israel doesn't have that, so they have to improvise. And a lot of the snow plows are improvised vehicles.
Yes, but if you remember, we had a century storm in December 2013. We had here 1 meter. If you remember, we were like stuck for a week, and they've learned now. So usually now they have all it's kind of bulldozers. Do you call it
JCB?
JCB,
yeah.
Were like ready next to the motorway and ready to go and clean the things. But it's true. You're right. It's like very rarely we have snow. And like again, we had about a good 10 centimeters here, 10 or 15 centimeters.
It says Road 1, the main highway into Jerusalem, was closed overnight but reopened to traffic today. Public transportation was set to begin in the capital at a slightly later than usual time of 9 o'clock. Jerusalem's light railway was running as usual. The Jerusalem municipality held a situation assessment Thursday morning regarding the city's education system and services. The meeting was headed by Jerusalem Mayor Moshe Lyon and attended by Chairman of the Teachers Union in Israel, Mr. Ari Kaplan. Educational institutes in Jerusalem's yellow and orange neighborhoods were approved to reopen by the Health Ministry and to start again at 9 o'clock Thursday. A statement issued by the Jerusalem municipality read, the municipality will continue to work around the clock to clear snow from main roads, with an emphasis on the roads that lead to the city's major schools. The city's statement added, and the light railway, as I mentioned, is working, so you can use that to if you need to get around Jerusalem. Well, the big news, I guess, is still the situation with coronavirus and COVID-19, as it is with everybody around the world, and I guess with where you're all watching today. And as I mentioned, we are going live, so if you want to message us, then do that. That would be great. And also, if you
have somebody from America who was just watching now.
Wow.
I'm just writing.
So
to him.
just welcome
from
to our viewers in the United States, and great to have you with us. Israel's coronavirus commissioner says authorities may impose lockdown for Israel's Purim holiday. Purim starts on Friday the 26th of February 2021, except in Jerusalem, where it starts on the following Sunday. Last year, Purim celebrations were considered, Nathalie, responsible for a peak in coronavirus infections, both in Israel and in the diaspora communities. Alternative Prime Minister Benny Gantz has told ministers he would support the lockdown, which is something they have to consider. He's the alternate Prime Minister. Coronavirus Commissioner Professor Nachman Ash said, "The holiday worries us. We are debating whether to take awareness measures and restrictive measures such as nighttime curfew or confinement," he said. There were more than 5,153 new COVID-19 cases diagnosed on Monday. Some 7.5% of the people screened on Monday tested positive. Meanwhile, the health ministry, that's in Israel, instructed hospitals on Monday to prepare for an influx of serious COVID-19 cases in children as Israel looks to reopen its education system.
When you say that, you need to know Purim here is a very big festival. It's the story about Mordecai and Esther, and so people will put some costumes and they will go outside and the kids are together and they are good to give some gift to everybody. So it's like very, very social events. And so obviously right now in the midst of the corona it's a bit more difficult. But we need to say something, because almost I haven't heard anybody speaking about that right now. The corona is going down in the world. If you look at the graph of what's happening in the world, is descending sharply. And I would say a lot of people are still like the vaccine, but the corona is going down. And I don't think it's because of the vaccine, because not a lot of people have it yet. So we need to know also.
Well, maybe if you can message us and tell us how it's getting on in wherever you're living.
Yes.
And that'll be very interesting, Nathalie, to know what
Tell
the
us.
situation
and even
is.
now.
But Nathalie's been watching it. Natalie's a nurse, and she's been watching the statistics, the graphs come in from the World Health Organization, and as she said, it's going, from the statistics, it's going down. Now, one of the concerning things is the vaccine, and Israel's Health Minister Yuli Edelstein wants to encourage widespread vaccination by offering advantages to those who take the shot, and also by limiting the options of those who don't, according to Channel 12 news report. Channel 12 is the news station in Israel. This is what Edelstein says, whoever doesn't vaccinate will only go out to supermarkets or pharmacies, while the vaccinated will go to stadiums and gyms. So this is quite a serious thing, he's saying. The warnings come out as the country's vaccination drivers begin to slow down. Edelstein said that he was, and this is just this week that this has been said, considering proposing legislation that would enable employees to prevent workers who aren't vaccinated against COVID-19 from coming to work. Startling things. Israel's Channel 12 News reported that officials are looking to limit access to gyms, hotels, restaurants and cultural and sports events for those who refuse to be vaccinated, while the inoculated will be able to enter freely. He said that education workers who refuse to vaccinate may have to pay for a virus test every 48 hours if they want to keep teaching. But health officials hope to find ways to make that even more difficult for them by making testing is difficult to find, more expensive, limiting the numbers and cutting back on testing locations, the report said. So something very concerning, really. One of the things that we've said, and we've mentioned this before, is that the vaccine hasn't been tested as it should have been. It's been rushed out, and it is something of concern to many people.
Now this is interesting, because just right now we do a bit of interaction. And Christopher from Baton Rouge is saying, don't listen to the media. We know that there is a fight for the media, which is very interesting that you are bringing this subject, because Gog and Magog, when you look at the name in Hebrew, is like Gog is also from Gigim and is the thoughts. And you're right, we know that the battle right now is a media battle, and is very, 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 very difficult to be able to find the truth. But we know that the truth is also the Torah, the Bible, and we know that there is a lot of things going on behind the scene right now, and we try to make the people, we try to make the people knowing about this
to understand.
these
I
things.
mean, it's how do we know what's true and what's not true? Well, some of it is by just being on location in the this is one of the reasons we're in Israel, in Jerusalem, is that we're able to see things literally with our own eyes, to be able to tell you whether it's true or not. We're able to pick up a lot of news media inside the country. In other words, we are reviewing the news that's coming in, not just from the main media, but also from local correspondents who live near where we live, and other news sources that are not always available to everybody. So we're looking at a huge, amount of different news sources to enable us to give you an indication, because obviously with coronavirus there is a restrictions on people where they can see and what they can't see. But Israel's health ministry demands obligatory vaccination for teaching medical public transport workers, according to Israel's Walla News. Israel Ministry of Health is reportedly asking for legislation that will require teaching, medical and public transportation staff to be vaccinated. The health ministry also reportedly asked to advance legislation that will allow the sharing of lists of vaccinated and recovered people with local authorities. Let me say that again in case you missed that. The health ministry, Israel's government ministry, has asked for legislation, in other words law, that will allow the sharing of lists of vaccinated and recovered people with local authorities. In other words, local councils, town councils, local community, municipal councils. In addition, the ministry proposed compensating local authorities according to their level of vaccinated persons. Unbelievable. So they're actually paid for the amount of vaccinated people, as well as compensating health funds and medical teams. Mandatory vaccination of teaching, medical, public transport workers raises very serious questions about the limits of a state's power to compel individuals to be forced to have something done to their body. Now, the Israeli government is also considering fines for business owners who break the green passport rules. There's something called the green passport, Nathalie.
I know. This is, again, when you speak about these things, we need to have understanding, and even for us, we're like always thinking, trying to get to understand what's happening. And some people and a lot of Zionist Christians think that everything is going to come out of here wonderful and all of that. But right now what we see is that, and we have to have the understanding, we are coming into the final redemption, which is not just for the Jewish people, but for the world, okay? When it was the Holocaust, it was the redemption of the land of Israel. And so there was a lot of Jewish people targeted about that, because it was going to be the land was going to be reborn and given to the Jewish people again, okay? And so, but now we are going into the final redemption, so it's like all the world. So we are seeing just right now things that are happening here in Israel, and like what Martin was speaking, like they are having green badges. I saw a little video. And the people who are trying to go into the mall to do some shopping who haven't been vaccinated are refused. And now they are also they want to make that they won't be just refused, but they will have to pay a fine, okay? And all the people who can go and who are vaccinated, they have a green badge there. And for me, I was like, oh my gosh, but this reminds me the yellow star, and it's slowly. And so you have to understand, because people say, oh, but like this is in Israel. Yes, but like you have to understand that now it's not just again the Jewish people, it's like again the freedom of humanity, of every one of us. And they are trying to push something on us, and we need to be aware of that, and we want to speak about it because we can really see it in front of our eyes. And we've seen the government really changing here in a few weeks, a few months.
And so, according to reports, the government is examining a 500 shekel, about $154 fine for anyone who is not immune to coronavirus or had the vaccination to enter an area marked for immune people only. Immunity in Israel means that the person has a certificate that he or she has recovered from the coronavirus, or that he or she has had the second vaccine shot at least 1 week ago. Those who have not yet received their second vaccine or recovered from the disease will not be able to enter will also be fined. In addition, a higher fine is expected to be levied on anyone who operates a place which allows those violating the guidelines to enter. From the initial discussions, it seems that the business owner who allows unvaccinated individuals to enter in violation of the restrictions will receive a 5,000 shekel fine, which is approximately $1,539. So this is a very serious situation, and we want you to be aware of that. We will, as we go, as we do these live programs, we'll keep you updated as to what's happening. Please do let us know what your thoughts on the matter are. It's very important for us, and how things are where you are in the world. Now, one of the amazing things, and we've talked about this.
But not only that, when you speak about that, now I can see in the media what they want to say. And now before they weren't happy about Israel. Israel is bad, but now Israel is wonderful with the vaccine. And it's like Fauci in America now just received the prize of Israel, one of the prize of Israel, and he's saying Israel is so wonderful and what they are doing because of the vaccine. And it's like, it's another story that we can hear now, just in few weeks. It's so many things are changing.
And if you've just joined us, where you're watching the Israel First television program with myself, Martin Blackham, my wife Nathalie Blackham, and we're doing this live on the YouTube television network, and you can talk to us on the chat button. If you're watching this at a later date, we'd love to hear from you as well. You can email us at info@israelfirst.org, or you can send a message on the website contact page. Website is israelfirst.org. Now, Jewish immigrants, and we've talked about this before, in the middle of everything that's happening here in the land of Israel, Jewish immigrants are still coming. Those people are making aliyah from the nations in accordance with biblical prophecy. And Jewish immigrants have arrived this week from Ethiopia, despite the closure of the country. The Ethiopian immigrants to Israel touched down on Friday, despite the near complete closure of Gurion airport. Some 302 Ethiopian Jewish immigrants were flown into Israel on a specially chartered flight sponsored by the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem to make aliyah, despite Gurion airport being closed and the borders being sealed off to limit or to lower COVID-19 infections. The Ethiopian immigrants touched down on Friday despite the underlying circumstances. Gurion airport, by the way, has been closed over the past 2 weeks, and Israel's borders have been shut, that's including the land borders, in an effort to bring down COVID-19 infections, and in light of the numerous variants making their way across the world. The new immigrants had to show negative coronavirus tests before boarding the flight and will now quarantine in Israel for 2 weeks. One of the new arrivals was a 6-year-old boy who was in emergency need of heart surgery, and he was taken from the plane straight to the hospital. Absolutely amazing. The ICEJ has set out to bring 2,000 Ethiopian Jewish immigrants to Israel as part of its Operation Rock of Israel, Natalie, launched in December. And
did you say what was ICEJ?
Yes, the International Christian Embassy.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have anything you want to say.
I'll just jump into.
Okay, you can stories. When you're ready.
Yeah.
Also, we need to mention your book. Natalie's written a book called The Beauty of the Hebrew Language. It's a bit about how the letters, the representation of the letters, and we recommend that. It's a great book. If you'd like to get hold of it, then go to the website israelfirst.org. All the information is there, and we'll ship that out to you. Now,
but you need to say also why. It's because the Hebrew language is getting more and more important, and there is a lot of treasure and a lot of things that you can start to understand. And there is keys, like for keys for the kingdom. There is keys for wisdom. There is keys to understand where we are at now. There is keys to know how to live in our lives. There is keys of like principle of life, and And the Hebrew language, and is like in Zephaniah 3:9, you can read it, or you can buy my book and you will see, it's just an introduction for people to start to understand more of what's happening with the Hebrew language, and is going to be a language which is going to be more and more used by whoever in the world who wants to really worship God and know Him more deeply.
Thank you so much for everybody who's standing with us to help us make these programs. It's because of your financial support that we're able to come to you today, live from our studio in Jerusalem, and to bring you news, to bring you updates at this critical time in history. If you'd like to get involved, and we need your support to continue to make these programs, then just visit the website, donate page, and all the information is there. If you have any questions whatsoever, then do contact us at the email address info@israelfirst.org, and we'll endeavour to come back to you and answer all your questions. Now, Israel is...
We have somebody from Australia now.
Oh, well, great. I don't know what time it is
Mike.
in Australia, but
a bit
uh,
later than us.
It's later than here,
Yeah.
as we're coming to you live from Jerusalem. We're great to have you with you, Mike. Thank you so much for joining us today. Australia is very important. You know, we do our program goes out into Australia on Angel Television every week, and you can either watch it on satellite or you could watch it on the internet. And if you want to know about that, we can let you know all about that. Now, Israel is a nation which is under constant pressure from other nations. In particular, it has been under attack from, as many of you know, from Iran's proxies in Syria. So Israel, it's reported that Israel attacked Syria this week, according to reports. Israeli airstrikes targeted a number of sites in southern Syria after midnight on Sunday, Syrian state media reported, in the latest in a series of attacks attributed to the Jewish state. The state-run Sana news agency, that's in Syria, reported that explosions were heard to the west of Damascus. There were no immediate reports of damage or casualties, nor were there any details of the targets. The Israeli Defense Forces refused to comment on the late-night strikes in accordance with its policy of neither confirming nor denying any operations that it's carrying out in Syria. The IDF has launched hundreds of strikes in Syria since the start of the civil war in 2011 against moves by Iran to establish a permanent military presence in the country and efforts to transport advanced game-changing weapons to terrorist groups in the region, principally, but not only, Hezbollah. The reported attacks came 10 days after Israel was accused of hitting targets on the Syrian Golan Heights and also Damascus airport. So something very serious, a threat that is from the north of Israel.
But do you know so that the Russians are going out of Syria in an area which is good and bad. Bad because they were trying to tamper what was happening, but at the same time is like giving more free range to Israel to really attack if they need to be attacked. Because as you say, there is a lot of weapon now. I mean, like tons and tons of missiles, and I don't know the exact, you have to look and find the exact, I mean, you were speaking about it. But it's like, is becoming very dangerous, and Israel was doing also very quick exercise. Did you hear about that this week?
Yeah.
And it was
an air exercise they were doing this week.
But it wasn't like planned. They've done it very suddenly to see the preparedness of the army and all the people. That's it.
It's something it is concerning, the situation with Iran, and hasn't gone away in the middle of everything, in the middle of Corona. Some things have seemed to have quietened down with coronavirus and COVID and the lockdowns in the world, but Iran certainly hasn't quietened down. Now, one of the interesting things is Israel is continuing with its technology drive. You know, it's bringing in a lot more technology. And we've talked about this before. Technology can be used for good or it can be used for bad. Now, Israeli facial recognition systems that can see through masks I didn't even know that they had that. Are now in use. Tel Aviv's-based Coresight AI's facial recognition system is being used worldwide in hospitals, airports, and by law enforcement and intelligence agencies. A groundbreaking artificial intelligence-powered facial recognition system that can identify people wearing masks. So, in other words, if you're wearing a mask, it can still recognize you. Or covering parts of your faces from Israel has been deployed. This is a system built in Israel, deployed around the world. Ofer Ronan, Vice President of Business Development at Coresight AI, told Israeli news media, "I see most of the players in the facial recognition market struggling with the COVID-19 masks, but our system was built from day one to be able to recognize people from only part of the face." Now, we've mentioned this before, Nathalie and I, that technology can be used for good or it can be used for bad. And for evil. So this is something, whilst, it's amazing the technology that's been used and developed in Israel, we also need to be very careful, Nathalie, about what the future is for this facial recognition technology.
It's like sometimes, I'm aware now that with my phone, with you walk, like in Jerusalem, or there is so many cameras, but there is not only that, there is the drone. I mean, they have ways, and because also of the corona, very interesting, there is ways of finding the people much easier. There was the government had to do some new laws about all these things and give them a lot of power that they never had before. This is scary.
It's certainly very concerning, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Do contact us, and we'll endeavour to read your comments out. If you'd like to get in touch with us, we mentioned before that you can email us. Our email address is info@israelfirst.org. You can visit the website www.israelfirst.org. And remember, we're the program that looks at the land, the people, and the language